Yay, sent to a third party. Yay. Hello, possum from the woods. Hello. Hello. There's wolves in here. Wolves. All right. So we're locked. You stop it, you possum.
Five.
All right.
Hello.
Welcome to the Love It or Hate It podcast.
Yes. Where we discuss a variety of topics and we talk about what we love, what we hate, everything in between. Today we're going to be reading and analyzing Edgar Allan Poe poems for spooky season.
Yes, because this is Poe Fest.
That's right.
All month it's Poe.
Welcome to
Because
Poe Fest.
he
So
has so much shit.
yeah, he
Yeah.
has so many awesome poems. So we'll be reading some Edgar Allan Poe poems, discussing them, and we'll just be reading other spooky stories. We'll talk about Halloween, things like that.
Mhm. And we'll probably get a Ouija board at some point and see if we can get Poe to show up.
We
That would
should.
be awesome. That actually a Ouija board, that'd be a funny one. We could do that one when we do the seance, or not the one where he's doing the hypnotism. We could talk
Yeah,
about the Ouija boards. That'd be fun.
yeah. We're going to talk about hypnosis and urban legends, unsolved mysteries, all things
Mhm.
ghostly,
Okay.
mysterious.
And I listened to a bunch of scary stories this week, so I got a bunch of those. And dreams and all kinds of creepy shit.
Cool.
All right. What else? So you want to start with the Raven?
Yeah, so
Okay.
if you want to read the whole thing and then we'll go back and kind of line by line, I can go back and read the line and we can talk about it.
Oh, I did want to say I had this pulled up to start. Chandler said something about this. My daughter said, mentioned that we have to mention the people that aren't going to do Halloween first. So
Oh,
I've got a list of people who won't do Halloween. So God
okay.
bless you. If you're listening, we're breaking all the rules. I appreciate you breaking them with us. But Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe Halloween is contrary to the Bible and is linked with pagan beliefs. They consult the Bible to determine if holidays are acceptable. So they're not in. They're not going to probably be watching. With Muslims, they believe Halloween is a festival that teaches evil and mischief and lacks religious significance. So no Muslims. Evangelical Christians, the favorite. They believe that Halloween is a pagan event that glorifies evil, which makes it fun. Russian Christians, I don't know why there's a separation, but they believe that Halloween is against Christian values. That seems kind of redundant. And then Orthodox Jews, they're the they got the little twisty hair. They typically do not celebrate Halloween because it violates Leviticus 18:3, which forbids Jews from partaking in Gentile customs. Yes, so that would knock them out of a lot of holidays, I would think, because there's a lot of Gentile customs. And those are the
Well,
best ones. So,
I wonder if any of those people will stumble upon our live stream and still listen to our podcast because we're just analyzing poetry.
hey, that's true. Hey, if you were, the Orthodox Jewish people, let's see them in New York, they have the hat, the black hat, and they got the
Mhm.
twisty hair and the glasses and the beard.
Yeah.
Would it be perfect irony if somebody saw one of them on Halloween and asked them what they were dressed as?
Oh my gosh.
Just ask.
I wonder if anyone's done that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there would be perfect irony. Or maybe it would be. I don't know. But anyway, so those are the people that won't be joining us more than likely. And if you are,
Well, I feel like
we're
they could easily join because we're just reading poetry and talking about poetry today.
that's
Uh,
true.
so it's not like we're embracing every Halloween tradition just by doing this podcast.
Yes. It's not like we worship the devil. Well, anyway. Uh,
Okay. So if you're ready to read it,
well, am
I
I gonna
can put it up
you
here.
want me to read the whole thing or do you want to break it up? It's up to
It's
you. I can
you.
read it. It's broken into paragraphs. I'm on Poetry Foundation, by the way. Thank you, Poetry Foundation, for your awesome site. But that's what I'm on, if it matters to you. Do you have it pulled up or no?
I have
Or
it
do you want
pulled
me to
up.
read it?
So
Okay.
if you want to read the whole poem, and then we'll go back and kind of I can be breaking it up after that.
Okay. I mean, I was going to break it into paragraphs anyway and stop each paragraph just so we have.
I'm saying like you can just read the whole thing, and then we can go back, and I can read it as we break it up. Does that make sense?
Oh, I'm fine with that. Okay, so I'm going straight through. Okay. I'm starting. Um, The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, which back then he was just Edgar Poe. He didn't go by Edgar Allan Poe until now. Um, Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of some one gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eager I wished the morrow, vainly I sought to borrow from my book's surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what threat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obstinance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but, with the mane of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and set, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly. Thou its answer little meaning, little relevance bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feathered then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Only friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it uttered is it only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, from an unmerciful disaster, followed fast and followed faster, till his song's one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I said engaging in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I set divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushioned velvet lining that the lamp's light gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tuft floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and Nephli, from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh, quaff this kind Nephlin, oh, and forgot this lost Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet, still, if bird or devil, whether tempest sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by the heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul that's sorrow laden if, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a Satan-sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whose angels name Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Dogs in the woods. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of thy lie. Soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from out my door, quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flirting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon that is dreaming. And the lamp light o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out the shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. That's it. That's the thing that I really wanted to try to get right was the timing, because that's the thing that I think makes this fucking thing so amazing is that punctuation.
Yeah.
If you pause at the wrong spots, you don't get that play on words that he has. It's so amazing. I don't know that I got it right, but that's so
yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay, so now I'll read it and then we'll stop and just kind of talk about it as we go. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. So, what I get from this is just, it's a dreary night. I see some person. At this point in the poem, it's not clear if the person is female, male. We don't know anything about the person other than they're just pondering, weak and weary.
He's setting a nice stage. And I mean, he establishes his pace and everything immediately. It's so good. Like I say, it's the words, sure, whatever. But that timing, it's so good. It's so good.
Well, I like how he has internal rhyme and like the rhyme at the end of each sentence here, you know.
Hmm. I
Um,
don't know that I understand what you mean by, what do you mean by internal rhyme? I don't know what you mean.
internal rhyme means like the middle of the sentence is rhyming as well as the end of this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But
It
I
has.
also I like how this starts out, it starts out like a fairy tale kind of, because
Mhm,
whenever we hear a fairy tale, we hear once upon a time. So I think
mhm.
that's cool how it kind of starts out like that.
And he was big. Poe was big into the metaphysical stuff, but like I say, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he was into it kind of like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but I don't think he believed it. So he was just using it as a tool because he knew that that sells really
That
well.
would sell. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
and that's
mentioned,
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. This
yeah.
is, yeah. But that's what I say. That's when we did that one of those shorts. I was actually about hungry artists. He's writing this, and his wife is. He'd already published The Mask of the Red Death, I
Mhm.
think, and nobody didn't necessarily like it. But he's writing this, and his wife's in the other room dying of tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
while
sad.
his wife is dying, he's writing The Raven.
Oh, does okay. So I did want to say that for anybody out there that doesn't know what tuberculosis is, uh, if you do the medical breakdown of the word, medical terminology, tuberculosis is an abnormal condition of having a tubercle. And a tubercle is if you get the bacterium that's associated with tuberculosis in your lungs, your body will stop, Edna. Your body will wall off the bacteria to protect you with a wall of non-contractile tissue. And that's called a tubercle. And that can't breathe oxygen. So as your body walls off the bacteria to protect you from it, you lose functioning parts of your lung. That's why people have tuberculosis just slowly can't breathe. Because their body's trying to protect them, but it's fucking them up doing it. So it's really interesting. Anyway, so most everybody he knew died like that. But yeah, pretty much everybody he knew
Yeah.
died. Hmm,
Yeah,
sorry.
back
Go
in
ahead.
the day, a lot of people died of tuberculosis. Pretty sad. But I agree with you. I love the rhythm of this. It's almost like a song. All right, so I'll go into the next part. Or is there anything else you wanted to talk about with this first part?
Hold on, I'm shutting a few dogs out of the woods.
Okay, I'll move on to the second part.
But go ahead, please. No, yeah, but that's it's it definitely you can see that in his writing that everybody around him is dying and dreary, and that's tuberculosis. You're losing your oxygen slowly, and you have faints where you think you're going to get a little bit better. That's just because your body's shooting endorphins in you. So he pretty much he lived his life around people that are just in bedrooms coughing and coughing up blood and can barely talk, and it's just everything's just fucking sad, and you
Yeah,
see it in
so you
all his
kind of
writing.
have to wonder how much that influenced his writing.
It seems to have a lot. He
Yeah.
has some pretty stuff too, but this it definitely painted him as a creepy fellow.
Distinctly, I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. So now we're introduced to Lenore,
Mhm.
and it sort of hints that she was an angelic being of
Yes.
sorts. Hmm.
Well, a lot of the biographies that I did said that they got the impression that Poe, because Poe's mom died when he was 3, so that he thought of women as saintly because I mean, if you the only memories you have of your mom are age 3, they're going to be very fantasy driven memories. They're not real memories. You know what I mean? You didn't have a conversation with your mom. You would just remember her maybe holding you or singing, or you know what I mean? You wouldn't remember anything of substance. It would be very angelic. So they thought that he thought of women as angelic,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I feel like that's kind of his wife was probably the same way. I mean, she pretty much dying as soon as he met her. So ugh,
Yeah.
anyway.
I really like Poe's use of alliteration here and like the repetition of the initial sounds here. Um,
Mhm.
really draws you in. Okay, so next, and the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door." That is it, and nothing more. So it seems like he's sort of trying to tell himself, oh, it's just a visitor. That's all it is,
Hmm.
nothing more. So it's nothing
Um,
to be like scared of, nothing to be afraid of. It's like he's trying to make himself feel better.
I, I think, if I remember correctly, one of his influences was Dickens, which anybody that wrote during this time period would have had to have been influenced by Dickens, Charles Dickens, because he was so important. Charles Dickens wrote The Christmas Carol, and if you remember, there's that line when Ebenezer Scrooge is being haunted by Jacob Marley. He says he hears him and he says, "Oh, it's just a ladle or a crust of bad soup or a bad crust of bread and soup. That's all it is. It's just
Yeah.
my stomach's upset and I'm having a bad dream." So it's the same type of, like, it almost seemed like he was doing a Homeric nod to Dickens because
Yeah.
he's doing that same type of thing. It's cute.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, interesting. And I mean, who wouldn't love Dickens? Dickens is awesome. But anyway,
Yeah. I agree. I also really like how he's sort of rhyming with more. I notice how he's rhyming more on the second, fourth, fifth, and sixth lines here. So I think that's the way that his rhyme scheme works. That's what makes the poem almost like a song to me.
I like I say, I love the pace. I like the punctuation. This is
Yeah.
one of the best punctuated poems I think I've ever read. Just so anyway, I'll stop.
Presently, my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce were sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." So it's almost like it seems like someone's playing Ding Dong Ditch. Like,
Oh yeah, that was good.
play that game. I've never played that game with anyone, but I've heard people like will go and like knock on doors and then run away when people come out, so there's no one there. That's sort of what this reminds me of.
Hey, people do that on Halloween, so it adds up.
Yeah,
It's kismet.
yeah.
Mm.
It's almost like someone's playing a trick on him instead of getting a treat.
Mhm.
Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wandering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. So
That's
he's
creepy.
hearing, yeah, he's hearing Lenore. He's hearing that word. And sometimes when you listen to the wind, it can almost seem like it sounds like something. I don't know. I don't hear voices very much, but
Mhm. I've
so at,
I read about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I think I was cutting you off.
no, okay, you're still breaking up, just so you know.
I was getting ready to say the same thing about you. Yeah,
Your
I got a
voice.
little stutter.
So, let me try to make sure all my applications are closed here.
Yeah, I got a little stutter on yours too.
Yeah, okay. Let me see here. Looks like everything's closed, but um yeah, it should be closed. I mean, I can't close anything. There's nothing else up to close, so it's just weird because usually we don't have this going on.
I'm closing things right now. Hold on.
Yeah,
I found.
it may just be like my connection or something. But it's fine. It's not a big deal.
But we won't be able to hear Lenore. There's darkness here and nothing more. All right, let's see. I logged off like email and or just things that might drag. Let's see if that helps. And just something, anything. And nothing more.
I think I'm actually going to read it off. I'm going to read it off my phone so that way I don't have to have that up on my computer. That might help.
And nothing more.
Nothing more.
Oh, I was gonna say you were talking about like the wind talking back. That I read about people who some people that are schizophrenic, that they will hear when the raindrops hit the windowsill,
Yeah.
that it's sending them a message. That's creepy. Oh, and that's
Yes. So you kind of wonder, it's almost like you want to wonder here, is Edgar Allan Poe like schizophrenic or something? Is that, or is he just imagining things, letting his imagination run away with him?
But I mean, to be in a house with a sick person, you can't really talk to anybody because you have to be really close with somebody to explain this type of story to somebody. Because you'd have to explain it in its entirety, otherwise you would seem crazy. So if he's just keeping this in his head all the time, he's got to be a little off.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine.
Okay.
Anyway, love crazy authors.
Back into the chamber turning, all my soul with me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window, Lettice. Let me, lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least, and I don't know that word. Do you know it?
Not the least. Where are we at? Not the least obstinance.
Obstinance?
Yeah, like
Okay.
if you're obstinate, you're recalcitrant, you're resistant to change.
Yeah, I know what obstinate means. I know obstinate. I've just never heard of how do you say it?
Obstinance. I thought. Hold on. I'll tell you right now. No problem there. Oh, sorry. That means differential respect. I think I did look that up. Shoot. Here.
Yeah, I think that means something different because
Hold on.
obstinate isn't the same thing.
Obeisance.
Obeisance. Sorry. Obeisance.
Yeah.
And it means differential respect.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. I should, yeah, it should have been honest there. Jesus.
So that's a slightly different meaning, but
Oh, yeah.
of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. So
And that Pallas is Athena.
yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Pallas is like an ancient goddess or something, right?
It should be Athena, the god of wisdom and beauty.
Yeah. And then
I was going to look her up. There's actually a bunch of choices, but because there's the Pallas, there's a Titan, there's Athena, and there's another one that's mentioned in an Annelid by Homer. Did Homer do Annelid? But yeah, there was a lot of choices, but it ended up that it seemed like everybody thought that was Athena. Because there's a lot of gods because one god's borrowed from another one. So we don't know which necessarily want to use them, but it seemed like that's the one he's using, which is interesting because he uses Christian stuff. He laces Christian stuff in with Greek and Roman stuff, which is very interesting. But he was very well educated, so.
yeah, and I remember perched also had a different meaning too. Like I like
Really?
this imagery where you see like the raven like actually perched, right? It has like a double meaning. Um,
I don't get that. Like I just get him sitting there on top of it. Is that
yeah.
not?
Yeah, but there's multiple meanings to perch too. Sorry,
Oh,
I'm trying to get this. It's like there's like a lag. Uh, it's really annoying. Hold on.
do you think
Why is
it's a Halloween massacre?
it? Uh,
So perched is the verb. So I've got perched of a person to sit somewhere, especially on something high or narrow, and then perched of a building, which is to be situated above or on the edge of something. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to close everything out because usually we don't have this lag. Uh,
Yeah, that is weird. It's probably my OnlyFans page, is dragging back all the bandwidth. I got a lot of people tuning in.
yeah, everyone's
Hey, hey, if somebody paid me money to take off my clothes, I tell you, I'd do it. I mean, I've been taking off my clothes for free my whole life. So it's about time somebody started paying me. So
All
I'm
right.
telling you.
Well, if you would pay to see Brian take off his clothes, comment below.
I mean, it's got to be a steady check. I can't just take like a flat rate. You know what I mean? It's got to keep me afloat. I'm pretty much going to lose all my other career at that point. So, you don't dabble in OnlyFans, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's a career decision, right? I think that's how that works. But anyway, but yeah. But still, if anybody wants to send money, I'll get a GoFundMe account going. We'll see how much money it'll take. It's going to take at least $20. Let's get that out of the way. Mm. All right, give me just a second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Nevermore. First and second, and nothing more. What's that?
Oh, Mopar, are you there? I just saw Mopar was listening.
Who's Mopar? Is that plastic bowl?
Um, no, that's a different user.
Mopar. I don't know. Well, hello,
Okay, I'm gonna
possum from the woods. Okay, get that. I'm ready. Oh, what was it?
okay.
Raven. A group of crows means a murder, and a group of ravens. I was
A
going to
raven is
mention
like an omen, right? It's a
an
symbol of
unkindness. A group of ravens is called an unkindness or a flock.
yeah, and the bird itself is sort of like an omen, like it's a symbol of something bad's about to happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Which that would have been a better background. I see a background now that has a bunch of ravens flying. That would have, like one from Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. That
Yeah.
type of background. That would have been a good background to go with. And that
Yes.
movie didn't age well, by the way.
Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore, quoth the raven. Nevermore.
So they
Thoughts?
got Pluto in there. That's a Roman god, right? And Pluto's a Roman god? I'm pretty
Think
sure he is.
Yeah.
All right. Trying to, let's see. Shaven. Wandering from the nightly shore. The nightly shore, that isn't, you don't think that's a reference to like the river Styx, the guy on the river Styx? I'm just guessing. I mean, that might be a huge reach, but I mean, since he's doing so many Homeric nods and all that jazz, maybe. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I do like that
It's
the Raven doesn't say anything but that.
right. Yeah, he's giving like a creature a voice that I don't know, just the idea of like thinking you're hearing a bird talking to you is just kind of funny to me. It's
Mhm.
not really that scary. It's just kind of funny.
But if you're, I mean, in reality, I don't. Can ravens talk?
So I know parrots can talk. I don't think ravens can.
You, let's see. Can raven? Yeah, that's it. Auto populated for me. Yes, ravens
You
can
know if
talk.
raven. Oh, they
Raven.
can talk. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess maybe that lends to it. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. Um, because if you told somebody the story of a bird sitting there saying that, that's not really that scary if birds can talk. If that bird could talk anyway, somebody would say, "Oh, it could just be somebody's birds escaped." Like it wouldn't. That wouldn't mean shit. You know what I mean? It. It.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that when he wrote this story, it was really popular, and the kids loved it, and they would chase him around the streets and and run behind him and click at his heels and swing at his heels, and he'd turn around and scare the kids and go, "Nevermore," and the kids just loved it. But he made $14 for this poem. He didn't make shit, but he was really popular for it. The kids loved it. Hmm.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
wonder if this is also somewhat referencing Genesis, because I know there's like a part in Genesis where Noah sends a dove and a raven in opposite directions, like to test the water or something.
Oh, he sends a. It wasn't a raven. It was a white bird. A
A dove
sparrow.
and a raven. A dove and a raven in opposite directions.
I
To
thought he just sent one, but he sent it out several times.
No, he sent both in two different directions to test the water to see if it had like receded enough for like the animals to leave the ark or something.
Are you sure? Are you sure? I thought
Mhm.
he sent one bird because I know
Raven, the
Epic
raven
of
never
Gilgamesh.
returned to the ark. Um, so it's just I wonder if this is somewhat in reference to that. I mean, it could be, it
I,
could not be.
I don't remember that part, but that's cool. Yeah, I'll take it. That could
Okay.
very well be the case. Yes.
So where were we?
Oh, you're at
Plutonian shore, quoth the raven nevermore. Much I
mhm.
marveled this ungainly fowl to hear disclosure so plainly.
Discourse.
It's, I'm sorry.
Discourse.
Okay, I misread that. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its an answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was best with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till a scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before me. Then the bird said, never more. Thoughts?
It's creepy. I don't know why he thought the bird's name is Nevermore.
Well, I guess if the bird is just saying nevermore, it's almost like that's how he's sort of identifying the bird.
I guess. All right.
Maybe he's trying to like it almost seems like he's trying to make light of this creepy situation, like
Mhm.
almost like interpreting the bird as a source of humor. Like is that his name? Is that, it's like it's almost like he's trying to like bring levity to this dark, creepy
Mhm.
situation or something.
Well, that would make it, maybe that would make it more relatable, because I mean, somebody's got to read this. Most people wouldn't just flip out. They
Yeah,
might do the same things and try to rationalize what's going on.
yeah,
Well, I don't know. Could be.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's trying to write it off as nonsense, but then soon he starts placing meaning on it. Well, maybe that's his name, or
Mhm.
um
But that's most of his stories. Now that you say that, I mean, what the Cast of Amontillado, while he's burying that guy in that wall, that guy's rationalizing it all. Oh, come on, we can work this out. He's doing the thing that most people would do. The Cast of the Master Red Death, the same thing, and then the Telltale Heart, the same thing. He
yeah,
keeps talking about that eye, but then he'd step away and kind of had those moments of levity, or he would, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to do this. So I don't know, but that's a good thing for a character, though. That's more believable. It's what I might do.
yeah,
Yeah. And plus, it makes you, if he slowly has you back away from that sanity, it definitely shows the person going insane, because they have to be sane to start. They can't just start out like a lunatic. They got to do this where they try to rationalize it, and
right.
slowly the rationale doesn't. It falls apart.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. So I like how he repeats never, right? So
Mhm.
overly emphasizing like never again. So yeah, it's any
And
thought?
disaster's capitalized, so I guess that makes it's like deified.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so in other words, disaster, I guess, is a proper noun. So that's a person, so to speak.
yeah.
Which,
So it's
yes,
like
that's, yeah.
he's equating disaster as like a conscious thing almost.
Maybe deifying it.
Yeah,
But disaster could be a pseudonym or a sobriquet of like the devil, for all I know. Or some other bad guy god. Because I mean, he's using Roman allusions and Christian allusions like crazy. So it could be any number of things, but apparently it's somebody important. But and I mean, hope is the same way. It's capitalized. So
yeah.
anyway, yeah.
It's
But
so
maybe, yeah. Anyway. Hmm.
he's almost like personifying it.
Cool.
Um, lost my
Are
place.
you at But the Raven?
Yes, but the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. So it's almost like he's thinking about how friends have flown before, like all of his friendships are temporary, like almost
Mhm.
almost like he's saying nothing in life is permanent. All relationships are temporary. Just like this visitor, this bird is a
Mhm.
temporary so it's kind of melancholy for sure.
But he's explaining that his life is fleeting, and the people around him are fleeting. But that'll be his saving grace for this bird, because the bird's just going to leave just the same. And then the bird says, "Nope, I'm sticking
Yeah.
around." I wonder. I know this is kind of a little off topic, but the bird's just sitting up there all the time. It never eats, and does it just poop on the pallid bust above his chamber door? Sits and poops and nothing more. I'm not sure if that,
Well, to me,
like, after a while, it'd be
I
pretty
interpret
nasty
this
up there.
as like I interpret this as happening just in one night. Like I interpret like this whole thing just happening one night, not like multiple nights.
But he
That's
says at the end that the bird stays there, like the bird doesn't leave. So,
does
I mean, I
he?
figure, yeah, he says at the end, the bird's still beguiling, never, never once leaving. He says
Well,
that's
he's
how it ends.
not leaving. I interpret that as like, okay, he's not leaving for the night. Like he's still there for now. But I don't interpret this as like, oh, he's visiting me every day. Almost like I interpret it as just all happening in a night. But I mean, you can interpret it multiple ways. So
I mean, when it's daytime, though, I guess it would kind of lose a little of the grandeur. I mean,
yeah.
after a while, it would be a spectacle of sorts. People come over and they say, "Oh, you got a bird?" And they're like, "Yeah, I guess." Say something good, it'll say nevermore. It's all it seems to know how to say. You know. But anyway, after a while, you feel like, "What's this?" Ask it a question. Hmm.
This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining, with the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press. Ah, never more. So he's still talking about the lamplight here. So I interpret this as it's still the same night. Like maybe like a few minutes have passed and he just keeps hearing the bird and he's like, what is this? This is nothing. This is nothing. Oh, wait, why is it still saying nevermore? It's interesting too. Now he's calling the bird a she. She shall press. So it's
You
almost
don't
like
think
he's
that's Lenore he's talking about?
well, that's I mean that's kind of what it seems like the poem is getting at. Like, is the bird a symbol of Lenore? Like, is he sort of like thinking that the bird is sort of reflecting Lenore?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, but because it says she shall press, ah, nevermore. So that he could be referring to the bird or he could be referring to Lenore, but he says, ah, nevermore, you know?
Hmm. So and you see he's the velvet violet lining. So that's that. I don't know if you've ever seen the real old cushions that are on seats, and it's that reddish velvet. You know what I'm talking about? And I imagine if you took lamplight and had it go through that or pass off of it, that it would cast red light on something. So that means that the room's kind of bathed in like a
Uh,
dark red light, which is pretty cool.
mhm.
That's pretty creepy. I don't know how those houses didn't catch on
Yeah.
fire back then, but and he's still
Yeah.
lying. I mean, he's just sitting there, kicked back, looking at this thing. So
Yeah, because this was written in what, like the 18 something? Do you know
shit,
the
I don't
date?
know. Let me see. No, that would be a great thing to know, wouldn't it? Um,
I think it's like
he
1870.
tried to get in the war between the North and the South, so that would have to be 1800s. 1850 is what Civil War.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it was like
um,
70 or something like that.
It'd have to be before
Uh,
that, 1870. Because I mean, if he wanted to be in the war, well, shit, you might be right.
1840.
1845. Oh, sorry, you gonna say it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the war. Shoot. Wonder what war he was trying to get in on then. Because they said he was trying to get in the war. I assumed he was getting in the Civil War because the stuff that he said. Maybe he was in. Oh, you know what? He probably was in. What, the War of 1812?
Well, he's not talking about the war in this poem.
No, but he enlisted in the military.
I remember
Yeah.
reading about that. He
And he
enlisted.
said something about going away to war, but I
Yeah.
assumed it was maybe it was the War of 1812, which was our second run with the British. But that would be, gosh, 20 years later. He didn't, and this is the first one he wrote, so that means he was a bum for a while. But he was pretty young when he joined, so that might work out. I don't know. Anyway, that's
Then
weird.
Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tuft floor. Wretch, I cried, Thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. So it's almost like he just feels like the raven is sort of reminding him that Lenore is leaving. Like Lenore is like, well, his love that he's losing. And it's almost like the raven is like this bird that's just like, nevermore, 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 nevermore. Like he's going mad thinking about how he's losing her. That's kind of
Well,
how I.
so he says, then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer. So the air's thick now, and it's got a perfume in it, so it's feminine. Like somebody spraying the perfume, like when women spray and walk into the cloud. I imagine that's that cloud. And then it says swung by seraphim, which is an angel. And in the Christian religion, it's the king angel or the big angel, and it's normally a child angel, right?
Yeah.
So he says, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. So I
Mhm.
get the idea that the child's got the six wings flying. So the feet are just barely touching the floor because they don't have to touch to go anywhere. You're just touching it for the fuck of it. You get me? Like the locomotion is done by the wings, so the feet are just kind of real light. Um, so that makes the angel almost scary in the way he's doing it here. But so you have the smell of a woman get in the room, the air gets thick, and then this angel comes in that's a child that's tiptoeing across the floor. Um, and then respite and shit, I don't remember what that one was, what that word meant. Do you know that one?
Which is a
Neph,
potion. So
uh,
Nepenthe is a potion of forgetfulness. So it's from Greek mythology.
okay. So yeah, so well, that's interesting. By the angels have sent thee respite, and nepenthes from my memories. Oh, so he's saying, take
So
away my memories,
it's
drug them
almost like,
away. I'm getting a
say that
drag.
again?
Oh, so he's uh, so the air gets thick. They smell perfume. A little angel comes tipping in there, and then he's begging them to essentially take that memory away of Lenore. Take it away, drug it, take it out of my
He's
mind,
basically,
and then yeah,
God, I wish God would forgetful potion. That's what he's saying. He's like, oh God, please give me this forgetful potion, so I could forget how painful this grieving process is. Because Nepenthe is a potion of forgetfulness from Greek mythology.
hmm Well, I guess yeah. So he's being visited by this angel. Maybe the smell of the perfume is him remembering Lenore. So he's just like, please, just get it out of here. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty
sort
good.
of
That's pretty good.
associating the perfume, but the perfume itself is like a forgetfulness perfume. So it's not necessarily literal. You know. He's
Mm-hmm.
just, oh, if only God could give me this forgetful perfume.
Heard.
Um,
Which probably could have been, I guess, because it's Greek and Roman, it would have been the salts. The
yeah.
salt mines. That's where the oracles of Delphi. They just were essentially
Mhm.
sitting over a salt mine, getting high on salts, bath salts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This kind of makes me think of the theme in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind,
hmm
because it's all about memory and how sometimes we wish when we have to lose someone, we almost wish we could forget them because the pain of losing them is so unbearable that we wish we could just forget they ever existed in the first place. It sort
hmm
of like reminds me of that. Um,
The only rub for that movie was it at the end they didn't get rid of Jim Carrey. It seemed like it would have been great if they just like at the end he just kind of went away.
oh, I
But
disagree. I love that movie.
no, I like the movie. I'm just making a joke that Jim Carrey is he get he gets on the nerves a bit. He's a little overdoing it maybe.
Well,
Some
not to
characters it's
me,
good,
not in
but
that movie, because he wasn't
you don't
trying to
think
be
so?
funny in that movie.
Not
I
to be
feel like
funny,
he
but just in
overdoes
meaning
the
alone.
comedy, but not when he's performing drama. I don't think he overdoes it.
So you thought Truman was good then?
Oh
Truman
yeah.
Show. You did like Truman? You didn't
Oh
think there
yeah.
were times when he was overdoing it?
Not really. Then maybe a few moments, but that's
Mm.
his style, you know. He has like his that's his thing. I feel like Jim Carrey's one of those actors you like either love or you really don't like, but
Mhm.
I really
I grew
liked
up watching him in Living Color. I liked him in that.
I never even saw that. All
Oh, it's
right,
pretty good.
moving on. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest toss thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Thoughts?
Yeah, I got that one. I love that line because it's a Christian line from
Mm-hmm.
the book of Jeremiah. I looked that
Mm-hmm.
one up and I did that whole chapter of Jeremiah. It's chapter 8 of
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah. And he says, God is in the story, the God character is saying, is there balm in Gilead, but it is not effective in restoring health. So this, I guess I'm looking at the NIV, but the King James Version says, is there balm in Gilead? Is there no physician here? Why are my people still sick? And it's just a cool line. He repeats it again in another part of Jeremiah and another part of the Bible too. But it's this phrase that essentially is saying, because balm is supposed to be a way to heal you. It's supposed to be like a treatment that will make you better, like a panacea. And so God is asking, why are my people sick? Do you not have any of that? It's kind of like saying, is there not a doctor in the house? Because everybody's sick. Why is there not a doctor here? He's kind of making a point. I think it's a great line. Um, I don't know. And the cool thing about this, I guess everybody has to remember is he's writing this in his house with like a quill pen or an ink fountain pen on a piece of paper. He has no internet. If he has any book references, like say he has a Christian Bible, he either remembers this shit and he's referencing it, which is risky because if you're off, somebody's going to tear you apart, or he's got that book there and
Mm-hmm.
he has to look it up. But
Yeah.
either way, the type of academic quality in just being able to know these references. Like I'm looking these references up on Google, and I don't even, like I looked them up last week, and I don't remember all of them. He obviously remembers them well enough for them to fire off as he's writing this. That's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how long he spent on the poem, but I
Mm.
do know that the Gilead was a region in biblical times where there were supposedly these healing plants. So he's sort of like questioning, can my religion save me from this grief? Like he's wishing there was like a healing plant for his grief.
I mean, yeah. No, I think it's just impressive that, like I say, even if he's just writing this in a room stacked with books and he's running over to the bookshelf and pulling this off and looking it up, he still would have had to have remembered it to even
Yeah.
go look it up. But just I don't know, it's so deep. It's got
Oh yeah,
parts you
it's
can pick
definitely
apart.
very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. And children loved it. So that did the children get all those references, or the children just like the pace or the fact the bird talks? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know.
definitely cuts across. But
I remember the first time I heard this poem, I was in middle school, and I remember like this kid in my middle school was reading it. And I just remember him saying, nevermore, 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 thinking that it went on and on forever, not really quite understanding it. But as I'm older, I have more of an appreciation for it. But I feel like kids hearing this story, they might think it's kind of funny. Oh, a bird's talking, and the rhythm of it is kind of fun. So they might have
yes.
a completely different interpretation. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. I
how
feel,
I
I feel
like the I think when he's making the reference by that heaven that bends above us, if you looked at the sky above you and you follow it, it's going to look like it, because it's going to look like it. Yeah, it travels downward, and that's what I get from that. But it's so pretty, so pretty. I just
yeah,
love the pace of this. It's so good, and I guess I don't think his wife's name was Lenore. I think he just kept because he has the poem for Annabelle as well. Um,
yeah. I don't know what his wife's name was, but you do have to wonder, like, is Lenore sort of representing his wife, or just representing the loss of someone you love in general, you know?
could be his mother. It could be.
Yeah,
By this point, he would have lost his mother and then his adopted mother, the
yeah,
John Dole's wife. So he would have lost two
yeah.
women already, and his wife's already got tuberculosis at this point. So um, he's got another one coming. Yeah, but anyway,
So he definitely dealt with loss, that's for sure. Poor
yes, he
guy.
did. Yeah.
Um, so I do think it's interesting how he spelled Aiden, Aidenn. It's kind of like a poetic spelling of Eden. Uh, so I
Is
thought
that
that
what
was,
you get from there? I didn't
yeah,
even think about that. Okay, it's different. It says Arabic word for paradise.
yeah. I mean,
But I guess that could be Eden. I mean, Eden would be paradise.
yeah, I mean, that's sort of what Eden is like, the Garden of Paradise or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. Huh.
And the contrast of his self description and how Lenore sort of reveals how the narrator regards himself too. It's like he's he's commenting on how he feels in relationship to Lenore and how highly he regards his memory of Lenore.
Mhm. That makes sense. I didn't actually think about that one at all, but that makes good sense. That's good. So again, that I think does that add to his literary prowess? Did
Yeah,
he know that? Because that's a Spanish one too. But did he know that? Did he know Quranic literature, Muslim
yeah,
literature?
I don't know.
That's impressive. He
I
did.
know.
He went to a very good school. I mean, he's very educated,
Yeah.
but it was still really cool.
Be that word our sign in parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
So good.
Yeah, I kind of
um,
kind of feel bad for him.
you want to read the last one? I'm going to step away for just a second and get that food for. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Mopar, are you there? Hope you're enjoying this little Raven poem discussion. Yeah, so if you're watching this or listening to this, let us know your thoughts about the poem, how it makes you feel, what it makes you think about. I'll go ahead and read this last part. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Oh, so sad. His soul shall be lifted nevermore. I like the imagery again of the lamplight and the shadow. Like we start with this lamplight kind of serves as like the catalyst for the poem's chilling closing image. And then it comes back around to the light again. And it's sort of like the light reminds him of the harsh truth of Lenore's irreversible death. And that casting, the ravens casting the shadow on the floor, and the shadow sort of becomes a manifestation of the narrator's grief.
So did the light go from red to black? That's not, I mean, I'm saying light's black, but you get what I'm saying. Because it was red light earlier when it reflected off the velvet, and then now it's got a shadow. He's talking about it having like, so in other words, was it like the red representing the blood, like the death? It's in the process of it dying, and now it's just, you know what I'm saying? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even pick up on the color of the light, like you
That's what I was
did.
talking about earlier, like the light
Yeah.
reflecting off the velvet would have made red light in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this would be the light goes from red to this shadowy dark light. I don't
Well,
know.
it looks, yeah, if you're imagining a light striking the raven, that the raven would create like the dark shadow on the floor, right? So the
Sure, yeah.
shadow becomes the manifestation of the grief he's feeling. And then it seems almost like at this part he's just surrendering to the fatalistic attitude. He's just like surrendering to it, you
That's
know.
what makes it cool at the beginning when he's trying to rationalize it and explain, oh, it's just this, it's just that, it's not anything big. And then that makes his spiral into lunacy so much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah,
Mm.
because it starts off where it's like, oh, it's probably just the wind. My
Mhm.
mind playing tricks on me. It's nothing, it's nothing. And then
And then the wind talks to him.
yeah. And then by the end, he's like, I've surrendered. I know this harsh reality of grief. I'll never see Lenore
Mhm.
again. Thank you, bird, for reminding me how hard this is. Stupid bird.
Uh, what if he didn't even really like Lenore? She's just somebody he dated, and that bird just is bugging him. But it's like, oh, Jesus. Anyway, oh,
But I
I
mean,
didn't think.
I think one
I
of the
didn't,
reasons this poem is still like appreciated today is because it's a universal theme. Everyone deals with loss. And when you're dealing with loss or grieving something, it's even though this was written in 1845 and it's 2024, I mean, we can still relate to that feeling of like, oh, I would give anything just to escape this torment.
that's almost 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. So, um, interesting. There's this book called Mensa. I think it's called Mensa. I don't remember. It's been so long. But anyway, it's written by the Mensa organization, which
Yeah.
is Mensa organization is just a bunch of blowholes that go around deciding who's a genius and everything.
Okay.
Anyway, so they asked one of the guys who was heading the Mensa organization because he'd been around for a long time running the place. He said, "How many geniuses have you met?" And they feel like they're going to get a really cool answer, and his answer was none. Um, and the point he was making was, as amazing as you might think someone is today, say like the Musk character, everybody talks about how smart he is,
Yeah.
whatever. If as amazing as you might think he is, he won't be a genius until 200 years later, if he's still around. And so, like you could probably aptly say now that Poe was a genius in
Hmm.
some regard
Yeah.
because we're looking at something that's almost 200 years old and has no sign of burning out. The
Yeah.
ember is still burning fine.
Yeah.
This will always be like we're talking about it right now
I
in
know.
technology. Yeah, so that was his point, is that he didn't know a genius back then, but so if people would have known him back then, they might have just thought he was some kook. Um, but he's a genius now. I don't know if that is in any way settling or helpful to his plight, but hmm. Anyway, I didn't actually think this would take us this long. I honestly thought we'd burn through this in like 20 minutes. We've been
Well,
there
if
like an
you
hour and a half.
if you're just reading the poem, it's quick, but if you're
Yeah.
actually like stopping and talking about it, you could talk about this poem like for hours.
I will I will say that when I was looking these up, because I listened to a bunch of versions of this,
Hmm.
I fucking hate it when people add on to poetry and aggrandize it with their own opinions. And so I would find some people where it'd be some cool actor and they would do the poem. Great. They do the poem. They just read it. And we're looking for that voice like James Earl Jones or Vincent.
Yeah.
Vincent Price did a really good job. James
Yeah.
Earl Jones, I didn't like his. I thought it was low energy. But I really expected his to be awesome, but it was low energy, I thought. But the Vincent Price one was awesome. I kept thinking like Michael Jackson was going to kick out and do one of those kick things, maybe molest a kid. But no, I mean, I kept thinking Thriller was going to cut on. But I didn't like it because a lot of them, they would start out and they would play some music and they would say something to kind of start in on the poem, like, oh, life is full of tragedy and blah, blah, blah. And I don't appreciate that because the work stands on its own and the work is what's remained. For you to take and tag something else onto it is tacky. It doesn't any place to do that. That's not the poem anymore. If he wanted that to be added in, he would have added it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I found that offensive almost, but
No, I hear what you're saying. I feel like, freedom of speech, like we're sitting here reading it, talking about it, but I feel like if we were to add sort of our interpretation of it, we just need to make it clear, like, this is my interpretation of it, not
yes.
this is the poem, and then add your own stuff. Like,
Yeah, and they try to add a little something at the front. It's kind of like if you go to the bookstore, you're
yeah.
gonna find dollars to donuts. You're gonna find for a classic, you'll find some asshole that's a PhD and they have written the foreword to the book,
Mm-hmm.
right? They always do that. And what they do is they tell you the entire story and what's going to happen and tell you all the readings and all this crap. In reality, that doesn't need to be there because the author's work has existed long before them. Doesn't need to be there. If you wanted to give examples of stuff, Oxford's good about putting asterisks, and you can go look it up in the back if you want to. But
Yeah.
having a head of the book is the PhD that does that is that kind of dick that if you went to a movie theater and you're getting ready to watch a really good movie and they're standing out in front telling you what happened. Oh, you know, Luke Skywalker is actually Darth Vader's son, and here's
Yeah.
why that matters. That's an asshole thing to do. Because I
Like,
never
you're
understood
spoiling the
PhDs are supposed to
sadness,
be what?
guys. Yeah.
What's that? What's that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you're spoiling the ending, that's not,
Well, that's all they do is they spoil it. They say that they're edifying you and making you understand what's going on and all that jazz. I don't think that's true. I think they're ruining the story because they have no business getting ahead of the story and talking to you about it. You should be able to read the story denuded. You should be completely free. Like when I read this, I don't mind Vincent Price reading it to me, but I
Mhm.
don't want him to talk to me about it before he reads it. It's
I
not his place. He's a voice.
mean,
That's what I want him for
I
in that
don't
regard.
know. I feel like if you just want to read it without hearing how anyone else feels about it at first, you should just read it instead of listening to a YouTube video of someone reading it and sharing their I don't think there's anything wrong with someone sharing their perspective about it or
No.
taking it and sort of performing it in a way and making it their own. As long as they're very honest and clear, like, okay, this is like my interpretation of this poem. I'm performing my interpretation. I'm not saying this is what Edgar Allan Poe intended. And we have free speech for a reason. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing. So what you're criticizing is basically kind of like what we're doing
No,
right
no, we're not doing that. We're analyzing it, but I'm saying when I would go on YouTube, I would search The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe,
now.
and
Yeah.
one would pop up and I'd click on it, and it wouldn't be The Raven by Edgar Poe. It'd be some asshole talking for a few minutes, like, oh, life is dreary and life is this. He or she are trying to add in, it was always a guy, are trying to add in extra material and then do Poe. That's like me saying I'm going to do Hamlet Shakespeare, but the first 10 minutes I'm going to do Brian. That's not Hamlet Shakespeare then. That's Brian and then Hamlet Shakespeare. You
It's
can't,
your
it's
interpretation.
insulting.
It's your interpretation of it. It's
It,
your
it,
performance of it.
ah.
So,
Interpretation seems like it's not enough of a word. You can't just throw your shit in front of it. Your shit won't exist 200 years from now. His will.
I
And that's insulting to put your
mean,
stuff in
I
front,
see
just like
what
those
you're saying.
PhDs.
I see what you're saying, but if
I don't
you're
think we're doing it.
I mean, we didn't like add stuff at the top, but like I don't get bothered by that. Like, I mean, if I just want to read the poem by myself, I'll just read the poem. But if I'm
Sure.
curious how the poem's affecting other people, then I'll watch one of those YouTube videos where someone's sort of like performing it and talking about how they think the theme
No,
is.
I don't mind that, and I don't mind people using it as performative piece. I'm saying that people are adding material to it. Example: if I said, if I got, say, a recipe from a Gordon Ramsay recipe, and I'm going to make it, and you come over to my house and I cook it for you, but I went ahead and added other ingredients and I did a couple things a little different. That's not his recipe anymore. And you see that constantly when you look at the recipe shows. People will
You're
say,
basically saying like I'm taking a recipe and adding to it, as long as you're upfront about what you're doing. Now, if you're misleading people and saying I'm just doing so and so's recipe, but you're actually changing it, then you're misleading people.
yes, yes,
I feel like
exactly.
as
Okay, then
long
we
as
agree. Then we agree. Yeah.
yeah, as long as you like say what you're like, you're clear about like what you're doing. So,
Well,
uh,
that was why I got irritated because,
yeah,
like I say, I would YouTube it, and I would say, "Hey, thank you, YouTube." I would say, I'd say, Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, and I'd hit enter, and I'd see one pop up, and it'd have some real dark picture, and I'd click on it, and I'd hear just somebody talking for the first minute or two about something they think is important, and then the Raven would kick in because I knew enough to know when the Raven started. I'd be like,
yeah.
"What the hell was this asshole talking about?" And they have no business calling it that. And it's like the same thing. If I say I'm cooking one of Gordon Ramsay's recipes, but I add a bunch of different ingredients and then hand it to you, that's not what that is. That's his recipe that I changed. Very different.
No,
Very
I
different.
understand.
I don't know. I don't mean to stand on. And I will say that I extend that same comment to when it irritates me to no end when I go to a fine arts museum. I don't mind it for natural history, but when I go to a fine arts museum and there'll be like a Salvador Dali painting on the wall or a Gustav Klimt, and next to it is this panel that somebody hung next to the painting, and it's all this crap. This painting means this, and it came from this. I don't want to know any of that. If the artist wanted any of that there, they would have hung it next to the painting already. The art has lasted long enough. If somebody, like I see, like the High Museum in Atlanta, we're in Atlanta, they have a headset you can wear, and if you want to know something, you can hit a button and it'll tell you. But I don't like those panels next to the painting. The painting is supposed to exist on its own. Doesn't A lot of people saw that painting and didn't even know who painted it. Um, you don't I don't want any of that extra fluff. I don't think it's fair. Nobody has the right to add art to art that has existed 200 years. You have no business doing that. None. Nobody. I don't care if it's the best artist that we know today. They're not that genius yet. He's the genius. I don't know. That's not too much, is it? Is that crazy? That's not crazy, right?
I don't think that's crazy. I just think it's your personal preference. Like you would rather not
Weird
be,
things irritate me.
no,
I just
you're just saying like you would rather not be influenced by anyone else's opinion except the artist's opinion.
yes.
Other people, they actually like are curious, like what other people think of the art. So I like going to a museum. I'll look at a painting and then I'll read what someone wrote about it, knowing that this is just an interpretation. It doesn't have to like align with me or how I interpret it.
But
Uh,
if you went to say like a Salvador Dali exhibit and you're walking around, you're okay with those little panels sitting next to the paintings that tell you, this painting is from this and Salvador Dali meant for this and blah, blah. He used these colors and stuff. You're okay with that existing?
yeah, I mean, it's just basically more info. If it's factual information, I appreciate it. Or if it's just someone sort of sharing their opinion about, I think this is the
Mhm.
theme. Now, if they know what the artist's intention was, like if it's something that's actually factual, what's wrong? I don't see anything wrong with that.
I do.
Like if it's
I feel
like
like it's
Salvador
extensive,
Dali painted this on this date, and
but it's,
this is what we know about it, and this is how I so and so am interpreting it. I don't see anything wrong with that. Because
I
what's
think that if the
art if
artist,
it doesn't stimulate like conversation? Like what's the point of art if
what
we don't talk about like
you certainly got the argument with what we're doing right now. But I feel like if the artist still existed, they would be wholly insulted by that. Same thing if you're an actress, you're going to do a play and you've spent a year or two writing the play, performative, you've practiced, and you say, Brian, I want you to go introduce it. And I walk up there and I spend 10 minutes telling everybody what I think it's about. You might, when I walk backstage, you might say, dude, This is my performance. How dare you get in front of it and say that it's not about any of that stuff that you thought. It has nothing to do with that. That has nothing to do with what I just, you know what I'm saying? Like it's
The
just
only
because I had a PhD that I would say that.
I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
the only thing that would bother me is if somebody was trying to speak for me. Like if they were saying, this is what Kimberly's intention was, and I hadn't told them that was my intention. But if they're saying, I'm just interpreting the performance this way, this is how her performance makes me feel, makes me think. I'm like, yeah, great. Everyone's
But you
entitled.
wouldn't think I'm bogarting your show? Like I'm
What?
on stage. You wouldn't think that I'm bogarting your show. I'm on your stage ahead of your piece of performative art, and I'm now kind of stealing the limelight. I'm a nobody. Like I didn't have anything to do with this. I just happen to have a degree in that. I don't think that gives me any right to do it. I think it's insulting.
I don't think that's insulting. I think that you're just sharing your opinion. There's nothing
But your
wrong.
opinion, no, I'm saying that your opinion just doesn't have place in that person's performative art.
Sure, it
You know what
does.
I mean?
Like,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so.
I mean, the whole point of performing plays is to impact the audience in some way. So if Joe
Sure.
Schmo just wants to talk about how they're affected, that's great. That's
But
cool.
but that wouldn't have a place ahead of your show.
Why
You know what I mean?
not?
Like you didn't, because you didn't ask for that. That's not part of the, like when you
Why
wrote the
not?
play, when
Art,
you
you
wrote
can do
the,
whatever you want with it. Like it's for, I mean, I'm not that like I guess I'm not possessive over my art because to me, I want it to stimulate conversation. So
Mhm.
I want it to like cultivate unity and not like separation. Like this is my art and nobody else has a right to talk about it or like
Well, no, I'm not saying, I'm not forbidding anybody from talking. I'm just saying that it's insulting to try to steal the limelight in the moment. Just the same thing. Like
I would hope if
if I go
if
in,
they're trying to like like make profit off of my work by showing it somewhere, I mean, I don't know.
not showing it, speaking ahead of it, in adding on material that you didn't intend to be there.
So for instance, like I am directing the show Constellations, and Constellations is a show about a multiverse.
Plug
Now,
it, plug it.
if there was an astrophysicist that wanted to stand up and talk about the multiverse theory because they're an astrophysicist and they can communicate like the science behind that, it relates to the play. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's cool. I think that's great.
But you don't think, but you wouldn't. Okay, so opening night, you're getting ready to start your play.
Gosh. No,
I
my
just,
answer is no. I am not offended by that. That doesn't bother me.
I don't think I believe you because I just think if somebody did that, you'd be kicking him off the stage because it just doesn't. It's not part of the show. And at some point, the people in the backstage would be like, "Why is that person up there talking right now?
Okay, so
Nobody invited them."
you realize like every story is just another story retold in a slightly different way. Like I don't see any
Maybe.
reason possessive over your art. I don't see the point of that. That just seems
I just like I say, I think it's wicked or it's not nice to somebody to have their piece of art and to hand it to somebody and somebody that has no business with it, didn't have anything to do with it, to step in front of the viewer and go, "Hey, I have an education. I'm going to tell you everything about this," and they have nothing to do with it. I just don't think that's proper. I think that it retards the art because the art should exist on its own. I want to see I like what's that the pointillism painting that the guy did, the one in the Chicago Museum of Art, Isla Grande or whatever, where it's those people in the park. I don't want to know what somebody else thinks about that painting. I want to see that painting on my own. I want to sit and look at it, and that's why they put chairs in front of the paintings. You
yeah,
can
and
just
that's
stare
you.
at them.
And that's great. Like you can
But I don't want somebody sitting next to me talking to me about it.
yeah, and that's fine. I
Yeah,
mean, if you want to experience art by yourself and you don't want to hear anyone else's opinion, that's cool. But
I
I
want to
just
hear it if I ask for
not
it.
the same way.
I
I'm
know.
not,
I just like I say, I don't think I agree. I don't believe you just because, like I say, if you were going to do a show and just before you guys are getting ready, like, hey, we're in backstage, you're like, hey, we're getting ready to start, and some guy just jumps up on stage and starts talking, I guarantee you guys would kick him off stage. You wouldn't just say, well, let him go. He does
that's
have a
different.
PhD. Let him talk about
That's
me.
different than what you're saying.
No, it's the exact same thing.
You're saying you don't like panels next to paintings that just talk
Same
about,
thing.
it's very different.
No,
That's
but okay.
very
No,
different.
if you
A
if
live show, a live show is very different from a painting at a museum.
no,
Like,
but I understand that. But
that's the thing,
the
like
example is the same. The
you as
example
a
is the same.
viewer can choose whether or not you want to read the panel or not. You have the choice. That's very different than
You
someone
have the
up on stage totally unplanned and not even like talking about it ahead of time. That's
but by definition, if you had like a Salvador Dali painting and there's a panel next to it, guaranteed Salvador Dali did not want that there. So it's the exact same thing. It's not
how do you
planned.
know what Salvador Dali wants and doesn't want.
I know that he wouldn't have. He probably the High Museum didn't exist when he was alive. So
So
guaranteed.
you're just assuming like what the artist wants.
I know
Just
that he framed
other
it,
people
and I'm
aren't
going to keep it in the frame. I'm
are
just going to keep whatever he has in the frame. That's it. Just like if somebody hands me a manuscript and said, "Here's my book," I'm going to assume that's all they want in the book.
okay,
They're
well
not going to
that's
want more in there.
that's totally cool. I'm just saying I don't have to appreciate art the same way you appreciate
No, I
art.
get you. I get you. Like I said, I just feel like I say, if somebody jumped up on stage, I think that's the exact same thing.
No,
It's
it's
somebody that
not. It's
nobody invited.
completely different. It's completely
No,
different.
nobody invited
Talking
them.
about the difference between a live show and a painting at a museum. Those are two different things.
You don't think seeing a painting is a live experience?
Okay. When you're looking at a painting, okay, that's a very different experience than watching actors perform a show. Completely different experience. You're watching real people in real time perform a show. You're not looking at an object. Those are two completely different experiences.
Isn't a live, but a live show is just nothing more than a combination of still art. I mean, it's tableau vivant
I
in
don't
motion.
understand why you're trying to argue about this. Like
Because
what?
I think you agree with me because I think if I did that to you as an artist, I think you would
But,
get really
okay,
pissed at me.
yes, if I was performing a show and some random person came up
A PhD.
going on stage unplanned, of
Yeah,
course that would irritate because that was not planned. But
sure.
that's very different than looking at a painting and reading a panel beside the painting. Those are two very different things. So
But
you're
they're okay. So
saying, oh, they're exactly the same thing. Yes,
I'm saying
if
they're
I was
similar enough for it
performing
to
a
matter.
show and some random person jumped up, of course I wouldn't like that. Like, of course, duh. But that is not the same thing as going to a museum, looking at a painting, and reading a panel. Completely
Okay,
different things.
I'll give you
Not
an
having
example.
someone jump up in front of you. Like, those are totally different things. So
I
what are you trying to get me to say? Like, what is your desired response here?
like I say, I think those are apt. I think those are synonymous examples. I think they're
No,
equal
they're not.
examples.
They're
I
completely
think
different.
they are. I think they are.
Okay. Well, I don't want to keep talking about this.
We can agree to disagree, but
Like,
I don't know.
everybody experiences art differently. And for you to be like, I think it's wrong for people to share their thoughts about a painting, like, I disagree. I think
No,
you,
I know. I no, I didn't. But I didn't say that. I said I think it's wrong for them to bogart somebody else's work and tag in their own opinions when nobody asked for them. I don't think that's appropriate.
then don't go to
I just don't.
museums.
Oh, that's not a fair statement.
Don't go
I
to
know for a fact.
museums
I know
then.
for a fact that
And just look
when
at the art book and don't read anyone else's opinion about it.
no, when you go through the history of say like art museums, the very beginning of art museums, which were in France, you have people opening museums. The you see exactly how those artists wanted their work to be presented, but then we take it later and we try to commercialize it and add in our own little extra features. And I'm saying I don't think that's appropriate. The artist wanted it to just be inside that frame, and anything that you add around it or close to it, that artist would lose their fucking mind if they if I painted a painting and I thought it was beautiful and I came in the next day and it's being presented at the museum and some blowhole put some panel next to it and said, "Oh, I went ahead and told everybody what the painting's about." It's like that's not what the painting's about. I didn't say that's what it's about. The painting's about that, not what you wrote. And I
Okay.
think that's
Well,
insulting.
you're assuming that you know what the artist wants, and you can't do
No,
that.
they are. And I'm
No,
saying I don't
you're
want their opinion.
assuming. You just said, if I was the artist, I would blah, blah, blah. I would feel this way. Just because you feel that way, that doesn't mean the artist would feel that way.
I know they did because they didn't put it up there.
Doesn't you can't claim you know what someone thinks when they're not alive and they haven't told you that.
I
You
have
get
to only go on what they've given me. And if that's all they gave me, like if you have the book and I know the book's just everything I wrote or everything they wrote, that's what they wanted to be published. They didn't want
you
the
think
extra
Edgar
stuff to
Allan
be added.
Poe would get pissed that we're reading his poem and talking about our opinions?
No, but he would get mad if I
Why
added lines to it. He'd be
not?
mad if I added lines to it and called it the Raven. That's insulting. That would actually I get sued. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So my point is like, unless you're trying to take credit for someone else's work, that like those are two completely different things. If you're talking about someone who's trying to take credit for someone else's work, yes, of course, that's not cool. But
I
what
think
you're
that's what they're doing.
describing is just like a panel by a painting. There's nothing wrong with writing a panel like that sort of describes the painting. You can choose as the viewer whether to read that panel or not. You don't have to read it. You can just look at the painting and only think about your own thoughts. You don't have to ask anyone else what they think if you don't want to.
Mm. But okay, what about the forwards and books? Do we agree on that?
The forwards and books.
Like any classic, if you get a classic, like I say, there's always a PhD at the front of it that
I
tells
don't
you.
usually read the forwards.
I don't either. I stopped reading them once I figured out what they were doing.
I mean,
But
I don't
yeah.
usually read the forwards because they're just that person's interpretation. And I would want to read the book myself. Sometimes I'll read the forwards after I've read the book. Like for
I'm
instance,
with you on that. I'm with
like
you
if
on that.
I'm watching a movie, right?
Hmm.
Uh I don't really look up a bunch of reviews about it before the movie. Or it's sort of like if I'm going to watch a movie, um or if I'm going to read a book, I'm not going
Hmm.
to watch the movie adaptation of that book first because then I
Oh,
can't get
definitely.
my mind. Because,
Definitely. It'll mess with
but
things. Yeah.
but I personally like after I experience like a book, a film, poem, a painting, I'm very curious to talk to people about it afterwards because I'm a social
Hmm.
person. So
Hmm.
if someone else is just sharing like a painting and then sharing their opinion about it beside the painting, I don't have any problem with that. I don't see how that's wrong. I don't see how that's violating the artist. I feel like that's totally free speech. You're just sharing your opinion as long as you
Hmm.
say, this is my opinion, not the artist's opinion, my opinion. You just have to be clear about what you're saying.
In the books, they're very clear that it's their opinion because they put their title and all that jazz. And on the panels next to paintings, it's generally just put there as if it's existed. That's one of the things that's a little bothersome about them. The panel will say, "This is what it is," and I don't think it. I don't. Anyway, we don't have to stay on this, but anyway, I figured we went on this one for a while. This is a little off subject, but it was still fun.
Well,
Um,
you should write those museums and complain and
Oh,
see
I've complained at the High
how that
Museum. Are you
goes.
kidding me? I've totally, when I was at the Salvador Dali exhibit, I complained because the panels weren't right. They made statements like Salvador Dali was a loon, and they make these very lucid statements about him as if he had this systematic thought, and they were wrong. Oh, I will say, uh, I did one of the uh, videos I did on YouTube was about Poe's life, and PBS PBS did one. Hold on. PBS did one, and I actually responded back that it was propaganda because they were because they said that because he sided with his jaded his jaded stepmother that he was a feminist, and that seemed a bit much. Like it seemed like they just wanted him to be a feminist because that's a position they need to have. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're stating something as fact when it's actually your opinion, that's a problem. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're just saying we believe he was a feminist because of this, that's different. But if they're
And
like,
the way
oh,
they presented it,
fact,
the way they presented it was John Dulas's wife got tuberculosis, and then he was cheating on her in the house with several women, and Poe sided with her. And they said he did that because and then they put at feminism on there, and I thought, well, That's a bit much. Like, you don't know that. I mean, first feminism at that time period, I don't even know that it existed. But if it did, it would have been starkly different than what it is today. So you can't just ham-handedly throw that term out there. I don't know that it would have worked too well. But anyway, do you want to do the history of Halloween?
Yeah. First,
Do we have time?
let's talk about the Raven. So do we love it? Do we hate it?
Please, yes. Oh, I absolutely love it. Absolutely
Yeah, I
love
love
it.
it too. I
It'll be around 200 years from now.
yeah, I think people will still be talking about it for a long time.
It's excellent. I very good. I this is with it. You did a lot of his work, right? So what do you think? Is this the best of Poe?
Well, I don't really like to think in terms of what's the best. I mean, I enjoy it. I
Mhm.
like the Raven. I wouldn't say it's the best. I don't know if there is one that's better than the others.
If you could
But
only take some of Poe, if you could only take a part of Poe away, would this be it, or would this be on the list?
if I could only what?
If only take a part of Poe away, you can only take a little bit of Poe. Like you have to recommend somebody to read a certain portion of Poe, or
Like
you know what I mean.
this is probably the most well known of his, the most popular of his.
So you agree with that then? That
I
this
don't
is the one? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a favorite.
Hmm. This is one of my top ones. If somebody was interested in Poe or they just talked about him and they wanted to know something about him, I would definitely want them to start with this. Even though this wasn't his first work, this was his second that he's known for because The Mask of the Red Death came before this. Yeah, I think it was The Mask of the Red Death. I would still tell him to start on this because if you read this and you liked it, then there's just a whole lot of fun Poe coming. But yeah, definitely. I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah, but
yeah, loved
overall
it.
I definitely think it's great. So yeah, we can talk about Halloween if you want, or I can share a short ghost story that's supposedly real.
Oh, if you like, I got a bunch of ghost stories. So I'm down for that. I remember you said you did want to do the history of Halloween. I didn't know, to be honest, when I did two documentaries on the history of Halloween, and once they defined the word, All Hallows Eve, once they got past that, it was a 45-minute documentary. And then the first 5 minutes they explained how we got the word Halloween just by the maturation of that word,
Yeah.
All Hallows Eve and all this jazz. Once they got past that, I felt like the entire documentary was telling me stuff I did when I was a kid. If that makes any sense. Like they just talked about the traditions and everything, in other words, are so rooted that we're still doing them today. Apple bobbing. I don't think we do
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah,
past that, I
Apple.
mean, it was they're pretty much just telling me what you did as a child, which I don't know for what it's worth.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting how some of those traditions started and how they've evolved. Like for instance, like the pumpkin carving, that was originally on like what was it, a turnip?
I didn't catch that part.
Yeah,
But
pumpkin carving was originally on a turnip, but then in the US, we started using pumpkins just because they're more easily available and they're easier to carve on. But originally it was a turnip. And I think most people know that Halloween originated from the Celtic religion, the Celtic beliefs, the pagan beliefs.
that's where we get Christmas too, right? Fir tree and all that jazz. Or no, is that one Scottish? Oh, that's Celtic then, right? Um,
And it started out as a festival. I think it was called Samhain, and it started like 2000 years ago. This festival, this fire festival, but it was
mhm,
really just about honoring the dead at first.
mhm.
They thought, and hallow is actually it's supposed to have a like a divine meaning. Like hallow means something angelic or divine.
These hallowed walls, which means that they're religiously like fortified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it actually had, a very spiritual meaning. And then the ween, that's sort of like a derivative of Eve because Hallows Eve was like the eve before this big festival where they would honor the dead. And I think some people believe that the dead were sort of around at that point. They could kind of connect with them or communicate with them. And then the whole trick-or-treating thing. It's interesting how that started because I remember reading about how the tricks were actually really like vandalism.
Oh,
Back
yes.
in the day. Back in the day, it wasn't like just like this innocent, cute little, haha. It was like, no, we're gonna vandalize you if you don't give us a treat.
Even as a kid, when I was a kid, they talked about soaping windows and whatnot. Or you take a
Yeah,
bar of soap and you essentially draw on somebody's windows. You know how long it would take to get that shit off? But
yeah,
I get why the Christians didn't like all the other religious groups I named, why all of them don't like, and why they thought it was evil. Because, I mean, if you had, back then, you wouldn't have had most of the characters people dress up now. People aren't going to dress as Taylor Swift back then. They would have dressed as not even Frankenstein or Dracula. They would have dressed as what? Witches,
mhm,
goblins, all the things that the Christians are scared to fuck about. So, I mean,
yeah,
all dressed like that, and then they're dressed in those costumes and fucking up your house.
yeah,
I totally get why they weren't too keen on it. And those are the people that caught it. You wouldn't have vandalized it because if you're into it, you'd have been awake and your house would have been lit up. We'd have known you're there. They're probably vandalizing the Jewish, the Muslim, what was it? Was it Mormons? Was it
mhm,
Mormons that was in there? It wasn't Mormons. It was Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, so
yeah,
all those poor people probably got their houses rolled and everything. So
yeah. But All Saints Day was November 1st, right? So it was sort of just like the day before All Saints Day, and they would do these big festivals and light fire. And the idea of dressing up in costumes was just to protect, to sort of like scare any evil ghosts that might be around.
mhm.
Um,
Probably convenient if you're going to vandalize too to put a costume on.
yeah,
You're probably houses are pretty far apart back then, so you probably didn't vandalize, five houses down. You probably vandalized the house next door because that's probably several miles away. Um, so yeah, you probably want to wear a costume. They're going to know who you are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I remember reading something about how the whole trick or treat thing, they were actually asking for these special type of pastries. Um, I can't remember
I
what
can
they were.
see.
Yeah, they were asking for it was like some type of pastry is what the treats used to be before it became like candy, how it evolved in the US. They were
Mhm.
asking for like a very specific, and the pastry itself was supposed to have some sort of like spiritual meaning.
All right.
I'm trying to
Does that
remember what I remembered.
does
Uh,
that cover all of the Halloween history, or is there more you want to cover?
I mean, there's a lot more to it. I mean,
We can always hit more
I don't know
later, but
everything off the top of my head, but I just think it's interesting how the holiday has evolved. Just like
Mhm.
every holiday, how it starts because of some tradition, and then somehow it gets continued on, but in a very different way.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's fun. Like, I feel like most people in the US just do it because it's fun, not because
Mhm.
they put a lot of like spiritual significance on it. But I know some people still think that it's a day where you can connect with like people
Yes.
beyond the realm. So,
Well, is it safe to say that the only people that think of it as more religious or demonic are those people that are religious? That most people like your uh what's a good word for that? Not the I don't know, your non-religious people. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put that. Like non-religious people or people who aren't overtly religious. People who are more sect and not so much cult. It's not the nicest way to put it, but they just do it like you say just for fun.
mhm.
All the way back. And then the only people that really spin it up and make it like it's worse or more than it actually is are the religious. Is that fair?
I mean, I feel like I know people that are religious that actually like look at it as um having some spiritual significance.
Sure.
Um,
I mean, you think that that's that those the people, just like the people I named off on that list, that they're the ones who are calling it more than it is. In reality, it's just a tradition that's kind of held over, and everybody's just trying to have fun. Just trying to have
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Almost like yeah. You ever saw the movie Footloose?
I think
Figured
so.
that'd be on.
Yeah,
Thought
with
that'd be
Kevin
on your list of
Bacon,
movies to watch.
right?
Kevin Bacon, yes,
Yeah.
he's in everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie, it's just a bunch of kids want to dance, and all the religious people make it into a whole big stink. And it's just kids want to dance. It's not even really a big deal. I remember the dance when I was a kid; they didn't really mean
What do you mean
anything.
religious people make it and what are they making it into?
Because you're not supposed to dance. It's against their religion to dance, so the town doesn't let them do it. That's remember
Oh,
the
okay.
girl that's dating
Okay.
Kevin Bacon is a
I
preacher.
It's
Yeah.
coming back to me. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's the same thing. It's just kids want to do a tradition at the prom or whatever dance. It's just they want to just have fun and get together. And all the religious old people that aren't going to be there want to make it into something that it's not.
Well,
Um,
no, I don't know too many modern day Christians that are like against Halloween, or they equate it with like something negative. I most because it never was about Satan. Like it was about like connecting and
mhm.
honoring the dead, and honoring the saints. So if anything, it was like pro-Christianity. Um, it was never like no, I don't know any Christians that look at Halloween as like, oh, it's
I could
Satan.
find a few. I could find a few. When I was a kid, there was the church I grew up in, the same thing. Everything was wicked evil. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that right around Halloween, if anybody wants, you could probably tune into like Fox News. And you're gonna get it. It's not gonna be a prime time hour, but some off hour. They'll have some nut on there. Or if you get on one of those religious channels where the televangelists are talking, I'm sure one of them is banging on about that still. I mean, it's too good. There's not really anything else to talk about. You know, at Halloween's,
Plenty
I
of
mean,
other things to talk
what's
about.
that? Well,
There's
I mean, I'm
plenty.
saying that they got to have something to talk about. They got to have something to get mad about. There's got to be some reason why the Lord's coming back, and so why not? Why not? And normally every year Halloween is over what the now it's late. Lately it's over the cultural appropriation of the costumes, right? That you can't wear certain costumes because you can't dress as one thing if you're not that thing or some other nonsense. Like,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
everyone's gonna have a different opinion about that.
yeah.
So I kind of try to just respect all the different opinions instead of like calling someone dumb or stupid just because they have a different opinion. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't think that, but that's
I
cool
mean,
that
yeah, I mean, if I was dressed up as like a vampire for Halloween, and some vampire come up to me and said, "Stop that! That's offensive." I guess I would stop. I would just say, well, I won't be a vampire anymore. I'll be a zombie. I hope I don't run into a zombie on the street. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I
But I do
think
remember, yeah,
the whole cultural appropriation thing is just like, people from certain cultures, they don't like to see like whitewashing. Like, so
they
that's all.
may. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Let me say that differently. If I don't mind hurting somebody's feelings if I'm doing it on purpose, but I don't ever want to hurt somebody's feelings by doing it by an accident. I don't want to do it by accident.
What?
I'm
But
being serious.
you like hurting people's
Uh,
feelings when it's on purpose?
yes. If you mean to do it, because I mean, there are going to be people in this world that you meet that are bad people, and if you want to say something that will hurt their feelings, I would rather do it on purpose. But if I do it by accident, yeah, that would bother me. That would bother me a lot. I think that's fair.
When was the last time you purposely hurt someone's feelings?
Gosh, I don't know. That's been a long time. Um, But I mean, I could think of examples though. I mean, when you see somebody that says something awful, or I saw I saw a lady at a store smacking her kid and really hitting the kid really hard and saying really evil things to the kids. And I said really mean things to her. And I hope I hurt her feelings because that's a bad person. I would expect that. But that's the kind of feedback that person needs. That way they won't do that to that kid anymore because the kid's not big enough to give them the right feedback. You know what I mean? So you have to stand up for people.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's debatable too, though,
Sure.
if that is the type of feedback they need, or if they actually need a different approach to
Sure.
change.
I
Like,
mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to solve the problem, but I do feel like that society, if they don't like something, they should push back. That's what our country is founded. This country specifically is founded on pushing back. we pushed back the hardest of any other country. I mean, people traveled to the United States because they didn't like one book, which was the King James Version Bible, and they wanted the Genevieve Bible. But they went all the way to the other side of the known world because they wanted that book and they like to push. So our country's made of people that fight back. That's a really cool thing about our country. So I don't know, maybe it's just woven into me. But anyway, you want to do any more Halloween history or no?
Yeah, I mean, what else would you like to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, when you were a kid, what was your favorite costume? The best thing that you liked, or your best memory?
Oh,
The best memory.
I thought you meant like the origins of Halloween. But my personal history, I don't know. I have to think about it. I really like dressing up like a cat, just because if I was a cat, I didn't have to talk to people. I could just meow. And when I was a kid, I didn't always like talking to people.
Oh, really? And you're an actress now? When
Just because
when
you're
I
an
was a kid,
actress, that doesn't mean you like talking to people.
oh, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, maybe some of the best art comes out of strife, or forced. Uh, I my favorite memory, when I was a kid, it was frustrating as hell. But my best memory is one year I dressed as Yoda, a little green fella.
Yeah.
And I had that was back when you went to the store and they had they probably still have it, the hanger, and it has the costume. Costumes were way better. They were better back then. And it's the bottom part, and then they give you that plastic mask with the rubber band, right? And so I had the plastic mask and the outfit, and it pissed me off so bad as a kid because ET had come out recently, and
Mhm.
everywhere I went, people kept telling me I was ET. It's like the parents didn't know better, and so I'd walk
Oh,
up and say trick or treat, and they'd say, "Oh, you're ET," and I would get like I was crying. I was so mad as a kid. I'm not ET, but I swear my brother thought it was hilarious. But everywhere we went, every parent thought I was ET.
how could they think you're ET instead of Yoda?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe ET wasn't popular yet. I don't know. Apparently it wasn't, but I dressed as Yoda. I mean, I had the Yoda, he had the ears and everything, and everybody, oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. What's that?
fun fact about Yoda, a lot of like Yoda philosophy from Star Wars is actually yoga philosophy.
Well, it
Yeah.
makes sense. They didn't change the name much.
Yeah, a lot of the philosophy he's talking about is actually yoga philosophy. That's
He
why
doesn't look flexible.
rhymes with yoga.
He doesn't look flexible.
Yoga is not just about flexibility.
Oh no,
Yoga
yoga with Kim.
philosophy.
Okay. All right. All right. I
Mhm.
gotcha. Well, wait, we actually could do if there is poetry, I would guess there's poetry around some of the people who started yoga. Um, if you ever wanted to do that as a literature piece, that'd be kind of a neat episode. I would enjoy that.
Yeah,
Um,
it doesn't have to be poetry either. It could be anything. I was
now
thinking of reading this ghost story uh if you want.
I'm down. I'm gonna step away, but I'm gonna turn up the volume. I can hear you.
Okay.
Go. Okay.
Well,
Go.
this is just one of the ghost stories, so I'm going to be weird. When you stepped away, it got all blurry. Weird. Is it all blurry? Oh. Yeah, I'll read this and then we can wrap it up. But this is just sort of a spooky story about Little Five Points. I'm going to be a ghost tour guide. So this is one of the stories. I actually haven't read it yet. So this will be my first time reading it. So this is about the Little Five Point Center for Arts and Community. So before it was the Little Five Point Center for Arts and Community, it was the Moreland Avenue School, also known as the Moreland Avenue Grammar School or the Moreland Avenue Elementary School. Why was it called Moreland Avenue when it's actually at the corner of Euclid and Austin? The original Moreland Avenue School was on Moreland. It opened up in 1913 as a 5-classroom building. But within a couple of years, the school started having horrible problems: leaky roof, crumbling walls, drainage issues, and the PTA demanded a new, safer space for their children. So in 1918, the city of Atlanta opened the new Moreland Avenue School here. This building served as a school until the early 1980s. Today, it's home to several businesses, including the Center for Arts and Community. WRFG Radio, Horizon Theater, and Seed and Feed Marching Abominable. I haven't heard of that one. It's also home to several ghosts, supposedly. My camera won't focus.
Oh, I wondered how you did that. I thought that was part of the ghost story.
Weird. I look kind of like a ghost now. My camera's focusing weird. So, we believe that there are at least 3 restless spirits who haunt the building. We've had multiple sightings from people who work here, people visiting, and from a group of intuitive people called the Enlightened Collective who hold their workshops here. The first spirit is a little girl wearing a white dress who appears in the hallways upstairs. She usually seems very upset or frustrated, like she's trying to connect with other people in the building, but just can't. This ghost may be 11-year-old Annie Louise Hill, who was a Moreland Avenue student who disappeared in 1915. Police weren't sure whether Annie Louise ran away, was kidnapped, or something else. She left her mother's home on Euclid Terrace early on a Wednesday morning. Neighbors saw her walking in the direction of the school, but she never made it. Hundreds of police officers around Atlanta searched for little Annie Louise, but she just disappeared without a trace. No one ever found her. Maybe in death, she finally made it to school, and she's been trying to reach out to her teachers and classmates ever since. The second ghost in the building has a bit of a temper. Several people who have offices here have told us about their furniture being rearranged overnight. They'll show up in the morning to find chairs pushed back in the corner, their neat stack of paperwork and folders will be reorganized, or their office fans will be turned off, and the interior doors will be shut tight. The cafeteria has the most activity. You'll find chairs moved around, dishes out of place, and the faint smell of something burning. We believe that this ghost may be one of the former employees of the school. In fact, it was their job to watch over the classrooms and feed the children during their lunch breaks. Apparently, it really bothers the ghost when their classrooms and their cafeteria are in disarray. They like to sneak into spaces when people are taking a bathroom break or have left for the day, or will rearrange things to how they like it. If the ghost is having a particularly frustrating day, let's just say I'd stay away from the coffee maker in the cafeteria. Oh my gosh. And our last but not least, our third ghost here, we know the least about. A few months ago, there was a woman taking classes at Enlightened Collective. She seemed to be enjoying the workshops, but then one day, all of a sudden, she called the instructor and said she wouldn't be coming back. Why? Because she encountered a spirit inside the building, and it followed her back home. Again, we don't know much about this ghost. The woman didn't give us many details, but the experience was enough to upset her and to keep her from coming back into the building. So this
And you're
is
going to have to tell these as you're guiding people?
what?
Geez, that is ghostly. So you're telling people this story it makes you look ghostly when you do that. So you're telling people this story as you're giving them a tour. That's weird. Can you do that with your face? That's weird.
Oh, sorry. What happened? What was that? What was that? What are you talking about?
Oh, your ghost face?
Oh, maybe I was just possessed by a ghost.
Oh.
So these are 3 ghosts that are supposedly in Little Five Points Community Center. So yeah, this is just one of the many ghost stories I'm going to be talking as a ghost tour guide around Little Five Points.
How did you get that gig?
I got hired.
Huh. I mean,
Someone recommended me, and they liked my voice and my.
So people are going to take regular tour, like several a day or every hour? How's that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually just one tour, and one night. So have you ever been to a ghost tour?
No, I don't guess I have.
Okay. Yeah,
I would like to go to, there's a haunted museum. There's a haunted hotel in Chattanooga that I think it'd be neat to stay at because there's a room in there that's haunted. allegedly. Nobody spends the night.
Oh, oh, really? What is
Yeah.
it?
There was a prostitute that was murdered in there. And so they normally don't rent the room out anymore. The Radisson Reed Hotel in Chattanooga. They don't rent the room out anymore, but apparently everybody stays there. They end up in their underwear in the foyer of the hotel, screaming. They don't want to be there anymore because she comes and haunts them.
Yeah,
Um,
I have you, so I've never had a supernatural experience myself, but I do like hearing these stories from like real people who
mhm.
claim to have seen things.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
I think they're fun,
Oh,
and interesting. Like I'm open-minded to the possibility of things that exist beyond our comprehension. So,
so like I don't know that I believe that the stuff would exist, but I totally would like to get into it if I was going to do it. I no problem with getting into it. Like I remember I read a bunch of alien books when I was a kid, and I think at the time I was believing that there was a possibility those aliens were out there. So that makes those books so much better. They're
yeah.
so fun because you kind of read them scary. So if somebody were getting into the ghost stuff, I get that. I totally get that. I would get into it with them. I think that'd be fun.
Well, what's
Yeah.
interesting to me is when there's several people who don't know each other that have seen similar ghostly things like
Sure.
in the same space. I find that just interesting.
I
So those
agree. I
are the
agree.
stories I'll be telling at the ghost tour. But
I did. There was one ghost story I was going to tell. Do we have time or not? I don't know what our time is. Do you have
yeah,
oh,
I'd say maybe about 10 more minutes.
heard. Okay. The one I heard, I was on, like I said, I was on YouTube listening to different people's scary stories. And there was one, I think it was like Nightmare Channel or something. And the
Hmm.
same guy reading all the stories, but it was kind of creepy. It was creepy. The guy said he was the story goes the guy was a little kid and he normal kid and everything and he had a cousin and his uncle that lived with him with his parents and I'm probably butchering the story but anyway uh, he started having these nightmares in the middle of the night he'd wake up and he started having these really weird dreams and his uncle was a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something and so he was friends with him or he talked to him more than he did his parents like he confided in him a little more so he finally got to the point where it was bothering him so much he went and talked to him about it and he said hey I'm having these awful dreams and I can't figure out why these awful nightmares and so he says well you're having those because you're taking stress from your parents and you need to push back and fight with them a little bit more. And so he goes and for the next week, he argues with parents. He says no a lot more often at the psychologist urging, his uncle's urging, and he says no a bunch of times. His parents think something's wrong with him, but he's just trying to, well, the nightmares don't get better, they get worse and then just keep getting worse and worse. He keeps having all these crazy nightmares, these out of body experiences, or something to that effect. I don't know. I'm probably adding on, but anyway, and then he goes back to his uncle and says, hey, it's getting worse. And the guy says, well, the reason why you're having these dreams is because your body is your mind is changing at a different rate than your body. Your mind is maturing faster than your body, as your body isn't mature enough yet. And he says that's something that if this continues, I can help you with that, but we'd have to see if it keeps getting worse and worse. And then he goes back and tells him, hey, it's not getting any better. And he says, well, then I'll help you with that. You have to mature your body at the same rate as your mind. Well, then he's lying in bed one night and he's having a nightmare and he wakes up in the middle of the nightmare and he can hear somebody talking to him in his ear, like whispering to him.
Oh,
And he turns around and it's his fucking uncle. And his uncle's in the bed with him.
oh, creepy.
And then he screams and his uncle runs out and then he goes and tells his parents, his dad, beats the hell out of him or whatever. And then the guy runs off and they start going through his uncle's stuff. And he has all these manuals about how to psychoanalyze people in such a way and all this perversion stuff that how to twist somebody's mind up, all these articles about it. And he has notes about what he's doing to the kid. And turns out that that's what he was doing. He was like grooming him psychologically. That was the story. I don't know. Really messed up, but man, this creepy, just
That's
creepy
really
story.
creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that take it the wrong direction? Because that's woo. Anyway. That just gave me the chills having somebody whisper in your ear when you wake up like that. But
Yeah, definitely
mm,
creepy.
mm.
Well, if you're watching this at home and you've experiencing anything, if you've ever experienced anything supernatural, if you have a ghost story of your own and you want us to read it, just comment in the description of the video and you can email us your story and we'll read it out loud and talk about it.
we have
Or if there
we
are
have a
any
lot of
other
comments.
ghost stories you'd like us to read, talk about, analyze, we're going to be reading and analyzing Edgar Allan Poe in addition to other spooky stories. So let us know if you have any suggestions. And yeah, when it comes to Poe, loving it or hating it, it's not really debatable for me. I pretty much love his stuff. So
Hey, who is Sweeney? I see them that they're in here a lot.
Mopar.
Who is Mopar? That so
Mopar
Mopar
is
is,
a subscriber to my channels. Mopar participates.
and am I saying that
Mopar
right?
takes some of my yoga classes online, and yeah. So Mopar is part of my Discord community. So
Wow, you brought all kinds of people. Am I saying that right? Svenia?
I don't know. Um,
Oh,
Also, if you're watching this and you're in Atlanta, if you want to come to my tour, my ghost tour in Little Five Points, all you have to do is click the QR code to sign up. It's
yeah.
gonna be a fun event. I'm gonna be leading several ghost tours, and there'll be other ghost tour guides too. I'm not the only one, but it'll be fun, spooky.
Are you going to dress up?
Little Five definitely has some eerie qualities.
Yes.
Yes, I will be dressing up as something. I don't know what yet.
Were we supposed to dress up for this thing?
I think wearing black works for Edgar Allan Poe.
It does. It does. What are we doing next? What are we doing next? Do we need to tell anybody what we're doing before we cut off or not?
Oh, we can I feel like next would be good to do like Alone, reading the Alone poem. I love that one. And maybe the Annabelle one. Um
I like those.
yeah, and then I have some other just ghost stories in general and
I definitely want to hear dreams. I want to hear because you said you had scary dreams. I had some. I wanted to hear yours too. I think
yeah,
that'd be
next
fun.
time we can talk about some scary dreams and talk about dreaming. Dreaming is one of those things like scientists can't even quite figure out why we dream. I mean, the theory is that our subconscious mind is just processing what our conscious mind doesn't either have the bandwidth for during the day. But there's so many different theories about dreaming, what it all means. You know, some people think you're traveling to a different astral plane when you're dreaming. So dreams are a really fun topic to talk about.
I will say I love this one about dreams. It's a philosophical statement. If not for discontinuity, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference between sleeping and waking life. Meaning that like my day when I go to sleep and I get up tomorrow morning, my life continues on from where I went to sleep. But your dreams kind of just start wherever. But if your
Yeah.
dreams actually picked up where they left off, there'd be no way for us to tell the difference. Do you realize that? If your dreams picked up where they left off every time you went to sleep, then how would you know what was real?
Well,
That's
when you
such a
wake up,
small measure.
I
What's
guess when
that?
you wake up, you would know that it
No,
was.
I'm saying that if they were always like that throughout your entire life, then you'd never really know which one was the real part. Because I know this is real because it picks up where it left off. But if my dreams start wherever and they're different dreams every time, but if every time I went to sleep, it was that same dream starting from where I left off, how would
I
I
think
know
you'll
which part was?
also, you
Yeah,
do feel different. Like, I've had lucid dreaming before, and I know that I'm dreaming. I've also,
I do
like,
all the time.
when you're awake, there's certain laws to the dream. Like, you can't really ever see time when you're dreaming. Like if you try to look at a clock, you can't really do that. That's something no one's ever been able to do when they're dreaming so far. Also, flipping lights on and off, that's something you can't do when you're dreaming. Um, there's certain things that you can like if you're
I've never
trying
heard
to
of that.
yeah, if you're trying to experience a lucid dream and you're not sure if you're dreaming or not, try to look at a clock. If you can't, you know you're dreaming. Try to turn a light switch off or on. If you can't, you know you're dreaming. There's other little tricks like that too. But there's actually a movie called Waking Life. I think that was made in the early 2000s. It's all about this. It's all about your waking life versus your dream life and how to tell the difference. So, anyway, let's talk about more dreaming next time.
Next time.
But thank you, Mofar. Mofar. I'd love to see video from the ghost tour if possible. Oh yeah, I can share some video. I'm sure I'll have friends that come to the tour and I can share some of that, Mopar. Um, Thanks for joining the chat. Looks like Daniel, Sean, and Mopar were joining the chat. So thanks for listening. I hope it was interesting and entertaining. Yeah, and if you have ghost stories, comment, let us know. You can
Oh
email
yes.
us your ghost stories and we'll read them.
Oh yes. That is actually anything scary. It can be alien abductions,
Yeah,
anything. I didn't care if a bush jumped out at you in the woods, whatever.
yeah.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it because I love scary stuff.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
if
best.
you like this podcast and you want to share it with anyone you think that might enjoy it, please share it. And in the meantime, don't get too spooked out there.
Yes. Yes. Stay out of the dark.
Okay. All right. Bye for now.